All right, let's talk sport business. What are we talking about sport business in a sport science of foundations course? Well, I'll tell you, the salaries of sports scientists, especially in pro sport teams or even collegiate teams, they're paid for because the business is viable. And so there is close integration between what sport business does and what a sports scientist does. So let's go through this. So integrating science, performance, and industry. So what is sport business? Well, pretty much any business with the tagline sport is sport business. But it is a global multi-billion dollar industry focused on participation, performance, and entertainment. And it's not just professional teams. We think about participatory based sports, marathons, half marathons. These are all run by sport business, some company that organizes the event for 25,000, 40,000, whatever it is, number of people, or sometimes it's a smaller number, 100 people, 200 people. And so participatory based sports, professional sports, all of these go together under sport business and really anything in the industry. So what does it include? Professional sports, collegiate athletics, fitness, and recreational sectors all fall within the sport business umbrella. So it's very broad. Sport business encompasses marketing, management, analytics, sponsorship, and even technology. In Las Vegas, one catchphrase that one of our faculty here, Dr. Bo Bernhard, came up with was the fun economy. The sport is part of the fun economy of Las Vegas. It always has been, and but it has grown rapidly and broadly in the last 10 years or so. But yeah, sport includes things like Cirque du Soleil type shows, circus performances in general. It includes boxing, which has been a part of Las Vegas for a long time, and then collegiate sports and professional sport teams. So why sport? Why does sport business matter to sports science? Well, as I said, we got to have dollars and cents to pay for sports scientists' salaries. So sports scientists provide data-driven insights to optimize athlete performance. And if it's a professional team or a collegiate team or something to do with athletes, the athlete is the product, and you're as a sports scientist, you're trying to make sure that product, that athlete, is performing as high as possible. Understanding the business side ensures effective resource allocation, athlete management, and innovation adoption. So really, having some good communication between sport business folks and sports scientists actually does help ultimately in terms of making sure that the sports performance team is adequately funded, and also there's data going back to sport business that helps them make business decisions. Collaboration between sports scientists, coaches, and administrators enhances decision making and return on investment. And it does. Just having these conversations about athlete load management, athlete readiness for to play, return to play criteria. We see in every Sunday NFL the concussion management issues that's a merge between sports scientists and sport business. And a whole other area of sport business that's really interesting is fan engagement. And fan engagement is just as it sounds. What are fans doing during the game? Where are they paying attention? Ultimately, how are they spending their money? And one example of sports science integrating with fan engagement is physiology data being broadcast to jumbotrons or even on TVs. For example, the simple information about heart rate, during NASCAR race car events, during different team sports, having information about the physiology of the person, the heart rate of a player is part of fan engagement. So there's lots of neat, nuanced intersecting points between sport business and sports scientists for fan engagement. The scope of work or scope of sport, global sport market, there's over 500 billion and it continues to grow. The fun economy just continues to get wider and deeper. Emerging growth in sport technology, this has been huge for sports science and then also sport business. Sponsorship and media rights represents a major revenue stream for athletes as well as sport organizations. And sometimes the sponsorship is a paid sponsorship from a company to have a billboard on the Jumbotron. And sometimes it is the other way where a team may invest in some company to provide some service for the athletes. Core sectors of sport business, professional sport, I've talked about that, performance analytics, injury prevention, return to play type of criteria, all heavily sports science focused things, but from a sport business side, that becomes important. We've all heard stories about players sitting out a game due to an injury and how that impacts ticket sales for a particular game. Collegiate athletics is important, and this continues to emerge as a neat area of sports science work, from testing, monitoring, compliance with doping regulations. All this comes into collegiate athletics and sports science. And in the fitness and wellness area, this continues to grow. So a lot of the fitness facilities are starting to incorporate a lot of sports science work, whether it's training machines that record the training session and then help the athlete monitor their training load over time. In physical therapy and occupational therapy worlds, there is more technology that's entering those practices. And speaking of that, technology and innovation and in general sport industry, the makers of smartwatches, heart rate monitors, power meters for bikes, what have you, and all the instruments that we use when we do combine testing. This is a huge sport business. And there's also research and development that happens with sports scientists and sport business, where you're trying to help a company develop an instrument, a tool, a device, and there needs to be some testing, validation, and reliability. And then sport business also encompasses event and facility management, the environment that the sport is happening, the safety of athletes. I'm sure you've all heard stories about field conditions relative to injuries and whether it's better to play on turf or grass or what have you. That is really a crossover between event and facility management and sports science. The paper that you read in parallel with this topic, this module, is from Fullagar, and the title is The Translation of Sports Science Research to a Field, a Current Opinion and Overview of Perceptions of Practitioners, Researchers, and Coaches. And in this paper, they use practitioners in the sense of the practitioners relying on evidence-based practice. So they're relying on research. And really what they're talking about is how research happens and how clinical work happens and how practitioners work on the front lines of working with athletes. And you have the spectrum of people, each having their own sort of motivation to do what they do, researchers versus coaches. And this paper just sort of talks about that and identifies how there can be a gap between these two worlds. So practitioners often face a translation gap between research and application. And one of the gaps exists because of the way research is typically done. in that we typically take a group of people in a research study, and we have them do condition 1, and then we have them do condition 2, whatever it is. Wear shoe 1, wear shoe 2. Use rehab device 1, use rehab device 2, whatever the intervention is. And we take a group of people, and then we run all the stats, and we say, on average, this is what would happen. But often what gets lost in that, what we call group design, is the individual subject. A story I always like to tell is when we do shoe research, we've done a lot of running research, and we take a group of 10 people, and we have them run in shoe 1 and then shoe 2. Doesn't matter what the shoes are. And then we measure something. Doesn't really matter what we measure. I'll say impact force, just because that's something that is very common in this world. And we have 10 people run in shoe 1, then we have the same 10 people run in shoe 2, and we look at impact force, how hard you're hitting the ground. Doesn't matter what the shoes are, you're probably going to end up with something like this. You're going to have 3 people who have a lower impact force for shoe 1 versus shoe 2. You'll have 3 people that will have a lower impact force for shoe 2 versus shoe 1. You have 3 that it doesn't really matter which shoe they run in. Impact force is probably about the same. And then you have 1 person that's going to follow one of those 3 categories. And what's interesting is if we do group design, we may actually say, on average, there was no influence of the shoe on impact force. But in reality, we had a group that had one of the shoes had a lower impact force, whereas a group had a lower impact force, the exact opposite shoe. And so they average out to no influence. And what we as practitioners may be really interested in is the 3 people in this group with this shoe. We want them to run in that one, or whatever it is, rehab device, that doesn't matter. Or we want these people over here to run in a different shoe. Okay. And so this is that gap that can exist between science and implementation, because as a coach, I'm interested in N of 1. I'm trying to work with that athlete and trying to help that athlete become as best as possible, whatever the sport or skill there is. And that coaching for that one athlete may be different than another athlete and another athlete and another athlete. Sure, there's some common approaches that probably work, but when you really get down to helping a specific athlete, you're looking for very, often marginal gains for that athlete. And so we have to remember that research isn't always built for the N of 1, a single subject information. And so this is where some of that gap between evidence-based practice, practitioner, researchers, and coaches that can exist. There has to be effective communication between researchers and decision makers. That's critical. And this is where the researcher needs to understand the practitioner perspective in terms of what they're doing, and not just stay on this group design type of message. And collaborative frameworks for practical sport solutions is just critical. There's no way that any single person is going to have all the answers to help someone improve in a particular sport. Career pathways in sport business and science, where they merge over. I've already mentioned sports scientist, and it's critical for, if you are pursuing this career, you need to understand sport business, team and organization-based business practices. It's going to help you do your job better. Data analyst, performance or market analytics, sport marketing specialist, and run data-informed campaigns. A consultant, which would bridge this the gap between science and business strategy, and maybe even just an entrepreneur. You start your own company, or you develop some tech that is used by teams. Lots of space for entrepreneur work. And when you go down this path, and if sport business wasn't what you are interested in, most of you are pursuing some type of degree in kinesiology or nutrition sciences in our department, but and so you may not have really considered the business aspect. And so it is something to constantly self-reflect. How can sports scientists effectively communicate findings to sport business leaders? That's important. If you end up running your own business, which a lot of our graduates do, they go start a fitness club or even a PT center. You got to do the accounting. You got to have businesses. You got to have managerial skill sets. What business factors influence the application of sports science? Return to play, concussion management protocols. These things are, a blend between relying on the research and the sports medicine physicians to make a objective decision on whether or not someone's had a concussion and whether or not they're eligible to continue to play. And then on the business side, you get the influence of ticket sales and what have you. How does commercialization affect innovation in sport performance? This is important. We just need to always watch for conflict of interest in that we're using product A and we promote product A, but we really haven't done the empirical research to determine if that is the right product. We just run into some problems that way. And sometimes we become brand loyal. Well, I've always used this type of instrument from this manufacturer to do this. Well, maybe there's a better one. And so we got to be careful not to stifle innovation simply because we hold on to some commercial link for some reason, whether it's our brand loyalty, or sometimes companies pay stipends to people to use their products. Take-home message: sport business thrives when science and management work together to create values for athletes, organizations, and society. And it really is true. In our UNLV Sports Innovation Institute, we really try to merge sport business with sport performance and sport science. And I've learned a ton from the sport business people in terms of why where my research may actually be important and impactful. And I do a lot of applied research. Well, that means it's being applied outwards. And it does often take the sport business side to take that message of a research, reframe it in a way that that others can understand. Okay, so that's sport business for the overview for this week. Thanks so much.